Today on Unity Motorsports Garage, we're going to talk about one of the most overlooked things when it comes to engine building: pushrod length. So as you can see, Joe has Project Sleeper looking pretty good. I mean, it's looking the part. Last time I was over here, we were looking at putting cylinder heads on. He went ahead and done that, and I was over here helping him. And one thing that we did was put the push rod in to check the length, and we realized it was way too short. So what we're going to do today is go over how I do this. Not saying I'm an expert or anything, but this is how Jessel told me a long time ago to do this. We're going to go through with my adjustable push rod, make sure that the geometry is right, and yeah, hopefully get this thing making some noise pretty soon. Check Joe's job out here. Got them good wrench 350 decals on there. Even made the valve covers look the part. The paint job's not perfect. It looks just like an early 90s crate motor. I mean, this thing is going to be awesome. I can't wait to see how it runs on the dyno. Speaking of dynos, I actually talked with Greg Finnegan over at the Race Engine Challenge dyno facility in Charlotte, and pretty much got everything set up for us to take this engine over there. I'm looking forward to some dyno testing that you've never seen yet, so you got to watch this video to the end to see what I'm actually talking about. But for now, what we're going to do is get to measuring these push rods and find out what it needs. The push rods that we checked it with to start with was 7 inches long, and it was actually the push rods that was in his old engine. One of the things that you need to think about when doing this type stuff is something called stack tolerances. Meaning that the deck of the block may have been changed, somebody may have decked it, cylinder heads may have been shaved or machined, a lot of different variables. But when we put it together, just mocking it up, we realized that push rod was way too short. I'm going to put it together for you so you can see what we witnessed, but pretty much the roller tip was back here on the back side of the valve. With a stud mounted rocker system, push rod length is everything to getting geometry exactly right. If you're using a shaft mounted system, the push rod has no input on that geometry because your geometry is set by the base of the rocker stand itself. But this makes the difference between an engine that will either be problematic, wear out valve guides early, or be exceptional. You know, I've said it many times before, the devil is in the details. Well, it is. So I'm going to set this up just like we did the other day when we found out our problems. I've got the valve tip marked with just a Sharpie. It doesn't have to be anything. Some people use layout fluid or Dyno. I use it, but if I don't have that, I use a Sharpie. It's that simple. All right, find 0 lash. All right, that's 0 lash. I don't have a wrench, so I'm gonna go down right there, and I'm gonna spin it over so you can see exactly what we witnessed. So this is the result. As you can see, most of the contact patch is back here on the back side of the valve. That is bad. That indicates that our push rod length is too short. So what that will do when you have push rods the wrong length, premature wear. If we were to run this for any length of time, it would actually wear out the valve guides because it's actually going to side load the valve as it goes up. But there's also something else I'm going to show you once we get all of this figured out. So in order to do this the right way, you have this little push rod that is adjustable. This thing's older than dirt. as it's made by Crane cams from years ago, but that's what we're going to do. So we used my 12-inch calipers here, and we're going to try a 7/100 to see if that gets us in the ballpark. And what we did, put a little green tape here to keep it. Most of these have like nuts, like jam nuts. I lost them some time ago, I don't know. So we put our push rod checker in here, maybe, hopefully. Maybe, sort of, kind of. There we go. All right. That tape was catching. Joe put some yellow paint, so hopefully it'll show up a little bit better. This is something that really needs to be done on every engine, especially if you're trying to build a performance engine. If it's stock and you're using all stock parts with stock rock arms, it's not that critical because the factory rocker has a pad that will just scuff across it. It's not actually, all of the pressure is concentrated in one point on that roller as it's going through its motion. There is 2 small witness marks. It's closer to the center, so that's a good sign. You can see it right there at the edge of my nail. But according to Jessel, you want the tip of the rocker about 45 thousandths on the back side of the center line of the valve. And then as the valve comes through the arc, mid-length, you hear people talk about mid-length geometry. You want to have this lined up as a perfect square. If you had an imaginary line going from here, from the valve to this, you would want a 90-degree square. Once you go past lift, it will go to the other side of the valve and then come back. So after checking the driver's side, we came up with, what was it, 7/150? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So 150 thousandths different than what we originally started with. That's a big difference in pushrod length. But my favorite saying is don't assume. When you assume, what does that do? Draw a line in between assuming you can get it. So anyways, we're going to check the passenger side to make sure that there's no difference in the deck, which I don't think so. We didn't really run into anything, the piston, so, but it's just good practice. That poly lock's tight. Cut! We'll put that in the blooper reel. All right, let's see what we got now that we have a poly lock that's not jammed up. Let's see here, I still need that wrench. See what we have here. This is a textbook example of what you're looking for. You see how the pattern is real narrow, it's concentrated, and it's not off to one side, one way or another. 7/150.
Let's talk about this bad t-shirt you got on. Where can we get one of those? Let's see.
Oh yeah, check this out. You got to go to Gunslinger Graphics, go to shop.unitymotorsportsgarage.com, and you can get your own TunnelRam Mafia shirt.
Want one.
All right, so another little thing that we just did, and I'm not going to mock it up and all that, but I'll tell you about it, is when you have the wrong pushrod length in the engine, guess what else it does besides having the angularity wrong? you end up losing valve lift. When we checked the valve lift at the valve with the 7-inch push rod, we actually observed right at
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
44. So just a matter of having the right length push rod can make a big difference in what your engine actually sees as far as valve lift. So now we know what push rod that we need to get ordered for this thing. The only thing that's pretty much left is doing the intake manifold, dropping the distributor in it, and getting it to the dyno. But I want to show you what we're going to be doing that special dyno testing with. Alright, talking about dyno testing. You know, I've said myself, I'm an analog guy living in a digital world. But that doesn't mean that I don't geek out over technology sometimes. And if you've been following my channel for any amount of time, you know that I'm a huge proponent of progression ignition systems. So this is what we're actually going to be running on the engine dyno. Pretty cool stuff. On the right here is actually a DUI unit, Davis Unified Ignition. And that's what Joe had been running in the Chevelle. And it's a really good distributor, don't get me wrong, but we want to go to the next level. Now this particular unit has the race features, the launch control and all of that, and hopefully we can play around with that once we get the engine in the car. So I'm going to give the secret away as far as the dyno testing that I'm wanting to pursue. I have never seen it done, and I'm probably making a mistake by putting this out before I actually do it, because I know the internet, it will probably end up on the internet. Not only does this distributor give you the ability to adjust your timing curve, RPM limit, all of that via Bluetooth, it will give you your vacuum advance. You can see that it actually has a vacuum port just like mine does on Mixed Up Boss. And I was thinking one day, since we have the ability with being able to program this distributor, we can actually dyno test a vacuum curve to get maximum efficiency and power on the dyno. Now you might be saying, well, how do you do that? Well, it's pretty simple when you think about it. We know what kind of car that the engine's going in. It's going in this awesome Chevelle. So if we take the frontal area and come up with the drag coefficient, we can actually determine how much power it takes to drive that car at a given speed, say 60 miles an hour. Same thing with 30 miles an hour, whatever the case is. By knowing that power that's required, when I get to the dyno, guess what I can do on that Power Mark Superflow dyno? I can actually adjust the load of the dyno to replicate the RPM that we would be going to deliver that amount of power required to push the car 60 miles an hour, and record what we actually see. So now it sounds good in theory, you know, it may work and it may not, but I've never seen it done, and I think once we go through the process, I think we will probably get some good results. I don't see where it would fall short. David and I have talked it over quite extensive to see if it worked, and he just thought it was a brilliant idea. So by doing that, I should be able to calibrate the leanest mixture from the carburetor, get the most timing in it, to where even though we're driving this thing on the street, it's going to deliver the best economy and the power to boot. Win-win. This is not the outro that I had planned for the pushrod video, but somehow or another the video didn't take or got lost. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you learned a little bit, and I'm excited about this Project Sleeper small block of Joe Davis. Man, this thing's gonna be awesome. The next video you will see in this particular series will be covering the modifications that we're doing to the intake manifold, and not all intake manifolds are created equal. I will get more into that when that time is right. We should have the Quadrajet back from Dean Oliver here pretty soon, and hopefully we'll have this thing on the dyno, I'm going to say in a month's time, give or take, maybe less. But you'll get to see it all here on Unity Motorsports Garage. And this is Andy. I will catch you later.